So, as I said, this next session here, I think it's one of the favorites for many of us. This is the time where we present one of the most recent pilots that has been completed by WaterStart and its members. This really gets to the core of our mission, which is focused on accelerating the adoption and deployment of new technologies, not just R&D, not just innovative ideas, but how do we get solutions installed more quickly, more easily, and with less risk for those of our members who manage water. So today I'm really excited to introduce our next two presenters. This next project focuses on something I know many of you spend a lot of time on, which is capital planning. And today we're joined by our friends Christy Tan-Nekowitz, who's the president of InVizion, the program integration and management software division of Pro2Serve, which is kind of the parent company there. Christy's been great to work with. She's got an extensive background in project portfolio planning, management, and analysis, which you'll see is a big component of this pilot project. Prior to her current role, she held various executive positions at Primavera Systems, which some of you may be familiar with already. They've been established in the industry for some time, as well as Oracle, which is a household name in capital planning in the water industry. She's in addition to that experience, she's been vice president of product strategy and customer support through this process. And joining her in the presentation today is Michael Thomas. Michael is a licensed mechanical engineer and civil engineer. He's got 30 years working in water, nuclear, petroleum, and aircraft industries, and has been at Metropolitan Water District of Southern California for the last 18 years. His current role is as capital programs manager, where he oversees teams responsible for capital investment planning and management, construction contracts, project controls, as well as engineering administration support. And this is the first time both of these folks have been able to join us for one of these channels events. And we're really excited to hear about the work they've been doing together through the pilot project of InVizion.
Thank you, Nate. We're honored to be part of your program today. Over the last few months, we've been really happy to work with Michael and his team on implementing this new CIP planning program for them. And I'll pass it over to Michael to describe our relationship.
Yeah, thank you, Christy and Nate. Yeah, at Metropolitan, we are really excited about having this tool, this InVizion tool, to help us plan a lot of our CIP work. And I want to say it's been a real pleasure working with Christy through this whole process, because really in about 3 months, we've gone from having nothing to a fully implemented planning tool here. So I'm going to talk about that right now. If we go to the next slide. Let's talk about Metropolitan CIP. So we have over $4 billion in known scope projects. It's actually over $5 billion. And they're mostly rehab replacement projects. Our system's about 80 years old, and so we're constantly having to improve it. We have about over 450 major projects, and every 2 years when we go through a budget cycle, we ask for more projects, and we get another 50 to 100 projects. And so all these projects, they're scheduled in Oracle Primavera P6, and we stored all of the project, what we call metadata, all the information about the project, the driver, the project's CIP scoring, the appropriations and project groupings. All that we stored in this old vintage MS Access database from about year 2000. We called it the E-list. And our problem was, every time we went through a budget cycle, we had to go to one programmer who was able to take the P6 data, combine it with the Access data, and create a spreadsheet that was not real easy to use, that became our ultimate tool. In our case, we learned about InVizion through ISLE and the tag process years ago. And we talked to them here and there, and we're like, okay, it looks like a good idea. I think, maybe it'll work. I don't know. So, and we had some conversations, and then we got busy budgeting again. And so went through a whole nother budget cycle. And then we kind of went, oh, wait a second. Now this is a real problem. We still have this one programmer who can mesh our data together, and it's really cumbersome. So what we did is I reached out to InVizion, and I just quite simply sent them our Access database and our P6 data. And then we set a Zoom meeting, and Christy, just like in the matter of like a week or so, had blended all this information together. We had a Zoom meeting, and we're asking her, can you do this? And she would on the screen go, okay, well, maybe I can do that. And she started planning out our whole CIP right in a Zoom meeting in front of us, doing things that we, in minutes that would take us absolutely weeks to do before then. So there's also other government institutional hurdles. We have competitive bidding requirements. We have sole sourcing requirements. You have to do all this consensus building. Everything takes time. And that's really the enemy of innovation. Innovation is all about getting stuff done quickly. So here's where we got introduced to WaterStart. And then we're like, wow, okay, look, what can we do here? And use them as kind of an accelerator for our innovation. And so here's what they did for us. One, they provided funding to get us below the competitive bid. Anything over $50,000, we have to competitively bid. They co-funded the project, got us below $50,000, and all of a sudden we just cut a PO and we're off and running. Second, they were able to quickly create a parallel agreement to ours with InVizion and got them going even before we had InVizion under contract. So boom, we're already out of the gate. Third, when you work with InVizion, we really have an opportunity to share the information that we're learning with other agencies. And we take that very seriously. It's very important that we, as an organization, are able to share kind of our innovations, what we learned, with our peer agencies. And lastly, if we're going to do it all over again, we would have used InVizion's RFP process to identify this priority and to move. And they would have helped us find InVizion in the first place. So all that going on, we found InVizion, and I'm going to turn it over to Christy, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what they did, what they do, and what they did for us, and what they've done for others.
Thank you for that. It's been really an exciting 3 months from getting the purchase order to delivering a system that works. And I want to tell you a little bit about how we got to that point. If you could bring up my slides, thank you. With InVizion, we are really a program planning and communication tool that can be implemented very quickly. And that's why we say you can experience speed to value. One of the reasons that we can produce value so quickly is because we use your terminology in our tool so that your users, your managers, when they're looking at a report or they're looking at a screen, they know exactly what it means because it's the terminology that your organization uses. And not only that, we take away the manual processing time by automating the things that you have to do every cycle, whether it's every month or every time your schedule is updated or every time actual costs are updated. We remove the manual work so that you can use that time to make data-driven decisions. And all without replacing your enterprise system. So in Metropolitan's case, they use Oracle budgeting system. They use Oracle Primavera for their scheduling system. And we leave all those in place. We just grab what we need and display the data in an easy to understand format so that planning could be done. So when Michael came to us with his problems, his challenges of, what he was trying to do by replacing an old legacy system, we talked about how other organizations in water have been using InVizion for similar things. So the first case study I talked to Michael about was this annual planning case study where our client had these budget spreadsheets that are literally 15 years or older. And they were using additional spreadsheets to collect additional project information so they can marry the budget spreadsheet from SAP, which is their accounting system, to maybe schedule data or asset management data about how many linear feet of pipe and how many meters and hydrants and so forth. We would marry those things for them so that Instead of having this cumbersome 5-year capital expenditures planning process every year, they would grab data from different enterprise systems and then manually stitch them together so that they can look at them for the first time in like a year together, and then try to rank them, prioritize them, and phase them out so they could satisfy the budget constraint. Maybe it's a top-down constraint from corporate, for example. So that they had this process that was mapped out, as you see on the screen here, that had multiple manual, error-prone, and lengthy processes in between the touch points between their operations people and the financial people. So what InVizion did was replace that long, lengthy process that typically took 5 months by automating the tedious steps using their business rules, not InVision's. And in the after diagram you see on the screen there, we condensed the process so that instead of 5 months, it took 2.5 months for this annual process. And the very last box you see there at the bottom is where InVizion is. So InVizion took a couple places where we could automate the process and reduced the rest of it for the client. As a result, the client was able to focus. Instead of manually stitching together information, they were able to focus on the analysis time, making data-driven decisions. They didn't have to spend any time emailing spreadsheets back and forth anymore, no version control problems. And as a result, they had a higher confidence in their numbers, and that they're not error prone, and the data wasn't like stitched together incorrectly. All this for a fraction of the time. Like Michael said, we can do this in 3 months or less. It's and a fraction of the cost of a typical enterprise system or even a typical integration project. And then really quickly, I wanted to mention that not only do we replace their old spreadsheets and the archaic process, they were able to spit out, just as a side effect of implementing InVizion, this effortless reports and dashboards, because the data is already in the database. So they're able to look at their spending, their S curves, and different departments, and where the problem areas are, and so forth. So now I want Michael to tell us what happened after our implementation. Over to you, Michael.
All right, thank you, Christy. Yeah, I'm going to show you what we did with InVizion. This chart here is created. This is schedule data, budget data from over 450 of our projects. Using our old system of spreadsheets and such, we really only had a good outlook of, say, maybe 5 years in the future of what the capital program looks like. But with InVizion, what you see here is we were able to quickly categorize those 450 projects into broad groups, which is the color codes that you're looking at there. And then we were able to set a budget limit. In this case, we set it $300 million a year. And then we were able to prioritize projects based on scoring, our CIP scoring of all 450 of those projects, and then use the tool to push schedules out to see what a long-range CIP looks like. So for the first time, we're really getting some new visibility into our financial future needs, and how certain projects based on prioritization are going to get implemented. And it's really a first look at us. So this is a huge thing for us here at Metropolitan. And we know that we're only scratching the surface with what InVizion can actually do for us. If we go to the next slide. So where are we headed with InVizion? So we want to take advantage of InVision's scalability. Like, we want to, because Christy, we've worked so closely with them, they really understand our CIP now, and we're talking about building automatic analytical tools that will optimize a capital program based on constraints like annual spending, like risk scoring, and taking all this information into account and just give us some real sandbox tools. We also want to set it up. Right now, we have it set up so that we upload data into InVizion, but we'd like to get to the point where InVizion is actually going into our data warehouses and our schedules and updating itself every night, because it'll do that. We want to be able to create kind of layouts that we can sort of maintain over time that get updated kind of partially, like because we move schedules around all the time when we're doing CIP planning. It'd be really nice to be able to bring in kind of updated budgets and not kind of disrupt all of our sandboxes. And so we're working on those kind of tools with InVision. Also, like Christy has mentioned, there's this whole project reporting side that we haven't even talked about, but there's so much opportunity there. And then we also have our asset management initiative, which is a really big thing for us, that we think that InVision has we can integrate the InVision tool into that whole entire program and give us all kinds of new data and information that we can use. So that's our plan. I just want to add, it's been just wonderful working with InVision and Christy. We as an owner organization, we look at what we're doing with Christy, and the world moves so fast now that I almost think that you kind of have a choice of either to innovate or to be left behind. And so this, I think, is an example of us at Metropolitan of really trying to embrace new technology, embrace new tools, and it's really going to save us a lot of time, give us such enhanced capabilities, and I couldn't be happier what the future holds with InVision. So, thank you all.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Christy, for sharing a little bit about your project. CIP planning is so complicated, right? And it's something that everybody is managing and dealing with. So I know a number of our audience members will relate and sympathize to some of the needs and the challenges you guys have around this issue. Really want to invite our audience to use that Q&A button and send in a question for Christy and Michael to hear what other kinds of things we could elaborate further on. Michael, to kick things off, let's talk numbers here, right? So what size funds do you now have working within the InVision software? Give us a sense of scale.
That's a good question. If you look at that graph, I mean, we're looking at spending $300 million up to $600 million with our new recycled water program in the next 20 years. So it's probably pushing $10 billion that we have dumped in there. And it's really helped us, like I say, categorize, organize, and look at different spending scenarios so we can really closely work with our finance department to figure out, exactly how we're going to fund all this.
Yeah, right. You've got a big team, and if anybody changes one part of it, there's like a ripple effect in the whole plan, right? So, Christy, did I get that right, Michael? So
there's always ripples.
Absolutely. So this is such a great tool. Christy, talk to us about, the pricing structure. Like when you work with an agency, how do you approach what the pricing of the service is? Is it around the size of budget? Is it around the number of users? How do you approach that?
Great question. The way we structure our pricing is based on the number of users and the capabilities that you need in our system. So, for example, if you needed the dashboards and report server, that would be one price. If you needed a custom integration, you would add on top of that. But primarily, the cost is around the server license as well as the number of users, how many super users you need versus how many reviewers or people who are just updating the data, their own projects, for example. So quite simple.
That's great. Michael, how many from your team are actively using this platform already?
I think we have 5 licenses. I have 3 kind of active sort of super users that go in and import schedules and do take advantage of all the kind of the opportunities all the capabilities in InVision. I'll comment on the price. It's amazing because when we bought this software, Christy described it as off the shelf. But if you'd ask her programmers, I don't think they would necessarily agree, because they worked really hard with us to kind of, to integrate our data and to really
Yeah.
customize it for us. But I'll tell you, I mean, absolutely, we just get tremendous value out of this. I mean, it's the software, like I said in there, we spent, in all, if you count WaterStart's contribution, like $75,000. And I have this tool now that, I was thinking about this the other day. The payback in this it's not in months, it's probably in hours or days in a lot of ways how we use it. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, right.
Maybe not
70,000.
hours. Let's say days or maybe weeks.
It's good. Whatever the ROI is really compelling to have the amount of funds being managed in there for the cost of the service. That's really helpful context to share with folks. Got a question again here from our friends up at Portland Water Bureau. Jeff Winter sent in a question saying, Michael, can you describe the extent of the scheduling level of detail feeding the actual application? Right. So I think that's a little bit of like, what's the burden of setup, right? How many different data streams do you need to pull together to go into the platform?
Boy, I think I might push that one to Christy, because we bring in our projects at what we call the resource level. So we have all our projects broken down into resources, and I think that we have them in 4 primary resources, meaning like every project is broken into labor, contracts, professional technical services, and other, which is kind of everything else. And then we also bring in every one of our projects by phase. And so we have what phase the project is in: study, preliminary design, final design, construction, post-construction. So we bring in that's kind of at the highest level. And that's kind of how my team uses probably more detailed than that. Maybe Christy can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Like Michael said before, I think based on this project now, I really understand his CIP portfolio. The way our product works is we allow you to choose the level of detail you want from your schedules. If you have a schedule in something like an Oracle Primavera P6, it could be really detailed, and you can just tell InVision you want to bring in data at level 2 or level 3 of your work breakdown structure, and we'll do that automatically. And then you can also say, I want my budgets, my actuals, and my forecasts from Primavera, or maybe your cost could come from a different system. It's totally, up to you where you store your data and what data is useful. So we don't dictate a certain level of detail. You don't have to worry about having to make your project planning processes overly complicated just so you can feed InVision. So it's really, we work with what you have and we help you make decisions based on data you already have.
That's great, Christy. Thanks for adding that context. The integration, making that easy is so important to getting things up off of the ground. Christy, to stay with you for just another minute, give us a little more background on InVision, and what are the size and scope of some of the other types of customers you have? Are you just working in the water industry? Give us some more background.
InVision started as a product for the Department of Energy, where they were having similar issues that Michael described. They had large portfolios with long-term asset-intensive projects, and they had to sort of create a roadmap for the next 40 years or however many years for example, for environmental cleanup projects. And they wanted to do the what if scenarios to compare how, their plans would stack up if they did it this way, or if they delayed certain projects that are lower priority. Could they save money? Could they speed up the execution? All of those similar things that Michael's team has to deal with. So after some success in the Department of Energy, and they use it all over the country for things like environmental management, we decided to roll out InVision to similar similar industries like utilities, So the water industry was a natural extension of that, energy, water, clean water. And we ended up introducing this product starting with private water utilities. And now I think we have, for water customers, we have probably almost 30 individual companies using the
Mm,
product.
that's
So
great.
it's very exciting for us. Yeah, we think water is one of these spaces that's really natural for a product like InVision because of how their enterprise system sort of, grew up and matured and they're not speaking to each other, And InVision is this low cost and powerful product that comes in and brings that legacy data together, or not even legacy data, just not requiring them to replace their enterprise systems is the key
Yeah,
for some, for people in water.
awesome. That's super helpful background. Thanks, Christy. I think we've got another question for you. So we'll just stay on you here for a minute from the audience here. As technology progresses, how will InVision keep the software up to date as time goes on? Is this part of your service package?
Excellent question, because I think that is what makes us unique. We
Mm,
for and Michael mentioned that we did some customization to get him the integration that he needed at the level of detail he needed for his P6 scheduled data. So that customization now is part of our tested, regression routine every time we come up with a new release. So Michael doesn't have to pay us to benefit from our future releases of InVision. When we have new features that we add to the product, just as a course of product development, Michael's team will have access to those new features in the cloud. We deploy it for them, and they don't have to pay us to maintain their customization. It's already part of the product, if you will. So that's something that makes us unique. Traditionally, when you do a customization with an enterprise system, you are stuck on that version until you pay them again to upgrade it to a newer version. We don't do that. That's not effective for us. It's not scalable for us. We rather just test each of the customizations that we've done and bring them forward with every release, so we don't have to maintain the releases that are 20 years old. So that's our approach.
terrific, terrific. Thanks for adding that, Christy, and answering that question. Would really encourage anybody else there out in the audience to use that Q&A selection within Zoom and send us any other questions or comments you have for Christy about InVision and their system and how they work. Also Michael, right? I mean, even if you have general questions that you want to ask Michael about his role in overseeing CIP programming, how that integrates with new technologies, really happy to try and address those things. Michael, this was this the first pilot? I think we kicked off with Metropolitan Water Districts once you joined us. I know you mentioned it a little bit in the presentation, how we came together and supported getting this pilot off the ground. Would love to hear your thoughts now about how that process has gone, and especially what's the next step? Where do you see this going next?
Well, let me talk about the next step first. Is I'll tell you this. I was just thinking as Christy was talking, is that we're entering our budgeting season early next year, and which is a process where we reevaluate all our projects, and we also reschedule and rebudget all our projects, and then we bring all that after we go through this lengthy months long process. Really the hardest part for my team is we take all this new data and we have to deal with it. What's interesting is with InVision tool is that we're actually, rather than dreading the process of getting the schedules to mate with the E-list, we just do that in-house, and I have my own staff doing this, and we can do it whenever we want. When we want to upload a schedule update, we just create the file, upload it to the cloud into InVision, and it'll do all the work for us. Also, I'll say this: a big part about, anyone who's done capital planning is a big part of it is how do you reschedule your projects? How do you distribute them? How do you kind of plan the big picture moving forward? And I mean, I'm really looking forward to it because we, really InVizion, I look at it, it's just a database. It's a database with a schedule component. And that is so powerful because all of a sudden I have my budgets and I have all my project data, and then I can just take schedules, and it maintains relationships. So if I say, I want you to defer a project by this long, it helps you do that. If I say I want to defer this group of 100 projects by this period, InVizion will do that. If I say I want to stretch these projects by a certain amount, InVizion will do it. If I say I want to detach the construction from all these projects and defer that part of it, it's amazing the amount of capabilities and flexibility we have. But getting back to how we kind of discovered InVizion and how we got going, I talk about this about WaterStart a lot, is that when you're in government, it's not natural for us to kind of innovate because, if you think about it, we're monopolies, and it's like, what's the competitive driver for, no one else is selling water to Southern California at the scale we are. So where's the competition? What's the driver to always wanting to be better and to do things more efficiently? And, it certainly is primarily our service to the water users of Southern California, but kind of internally, I kind of think of because we're monopoly, the enemy of monopolies is complacency. And if we are always driving to innovate, then we're kind of keeping ourselves engaged, and it's a huge part of, I would say, of engaging we public servants. And this kind of project and using WaterStart as sort of a launching platform for it, it's like when I talk to my staff or to other parts within the organization, I say, look, we're using WaterStart to help fund this. They're like, what, WaterStart? Who's someone's helping fund something new? I've never heard of this before. And what it does is it makes the project kind of a little bigger than just what we are, it's not just our little CIP project. Now it's like, well, now it's part of a bigger district-wide initiative. And now it's part of even a larger water industry initiative. And I'm telling you, that is a huge benefit to me in order to move these kind of innovative projects forward. And I think it's a huge benefit, for all agencies that are part of WaterStart. So that's how I use it, and that's how looking back and looking forward, and we're going to keep doing this. I mean, we just are. It's we have tons of opportunities, and we just want to keep innovating.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. We're really excited that the pilot was successful and you guys are moving on to a full-scale deployment and using this technology long-term as a solution, right? Not just a test or a fun exercise in trying something new. But Christy, congratulations on providing a new solution for Michael and his team. It's really great. With that, I really want, again, to invite everybody out there in the audience, if you want to learn more, if you want to talk directly with Christy, with Michael about this project or related topics, WaterStart's here to help facilitate those introductions and continued discussions. We're always really excited to have a new member and to bring in a new portfolio company. So Michael, Christy, great to have you guys participating in the First Channels event. We'll look forward to having you join us for many more to come. So thanks very much, you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Nate.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having us.